Are you looking to grow revenues, increase profitability, or obtain financing? If so, you came to the right place.
Running a business is all about leadership. How do you become a better leader? Learn from the successful entrepreneurs and business owners how to lead your organization more effectively. That's why we created Leadership Live at 8:05, Talking Small Business, to help you succeed with your host, Andrew Frazier, Business Growth Pro and CFO and founder of the Small Business Pro University. Every Tuesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern, we're joined by experienced entrepreneurs and business owners who share their secrets to success via live stream. Also, every Friday morning, we release a new podcast episode. Either way, you will learn about developing your business leadership skills from our roster of highly performing guest experts. Leadership Live is one of the many valuable resources provided through the Small Business Pro University, empowering business owners to learn, profit, and grow. Find out more at sbpru.com.
Good evening and welcome back to Leadership Live at 8:05. I'm your host, Andrew Frazier. Excited about hanging out with you once again on Tuesday evening. Always appreciate everybody tuning in, your questions, your comments, and I'm looking forward to a great show tonight. One of the things about entrepreneurship and business, it's a journey. And, things don't happen overnight, but if you're diligent, you can continue building your business, and that's what we're going to talk about. How do you do that? Tonight's topic is we're going to talk about business as a team sport. So it's not an individual success. It's really about creating a team and being able to have a successful team. So my guest actually tonight, I'm really excited about having him on. He just agreed to do it today because our previous guest had a death in the family. But we reconnected over the weekend. I went home to Pittsburgh for a baseball reunion from Little League. And, it was a great experience reconnecting with people. We had talked, he, shared a little bit more about his entrepreneurial journey and some of the things he's seen and how he likes sharing what he's learned. So I invited him to be on the live stream. Didn't realize it was going to be so soon, but it works out, and things work out always in an interesting and good way. So tonight's guest, tonight we have let me just see if I can put that up. Tonight we have Mel Solomon, and we're going to talk about business being a team sport. So look forward to having him up there. And let's see, there I come. So let me bring him back. And actually, Mel was one of our coaches. And I think I played 8 years in Little League and pre-Little League with both of his sons as well. And we had a winning team. So definitely great experience over the years. So hey, Mel, thanks for joining me tonight.
Thank you, Andrew. Appreciate it. Very excited to do so.
Okay, excellent. So you've had a very interesting, winding journey, and you've seen so many things in business, and you've overcome all of the challenges. You've gone from startup to scaling your business, and very, very, very few business owners and businesses ever experience that. So look forward to just learning more about you and how you did that.
Okay, glad to share that.
Excellent. So why don't we start, maybe take a few minutes to talk a little bit about your journey, introduce yourself, let people know who you are a little bit before we dig into the topic.
Will do. So once again, as Andrew mentioned, Mel Solomon here. I graduated from the University of Pittsburgh with a mechanical engineering degree. As I found out, so did Andrew. and came out into the field in the steel industry. I was basically involved with a company out of Canton, Ohio, that built and that manufactured and sold steelmaking equipment, from the melt in the beginning to the final process as the product went out the door. So I had an extensive exposure to all facets of making steel products. That journey was approximately 14 years, and I was fortunate enough to leave the corporate world, the corporate security blanket, and buy a company that was distressed, literally had been folded, and we purchased it at a greatly discounted price and pushed the buttons from day one, not knowing one thing about entrepreneurship, running a business by yourselves. Unfortunately, I had a partner who equally was excited about this and willing to roll his sleeves up, and we did that. In that basically happened in 1978. So at that time, we as small business people had no exposure to tools such as the one we're enjoying now. There was literally very few people around to give us advice. It was truly learned by rote. And at some points, you felt like you were thrown into the middle of the river and figure out how to get to shore by yourself. And the things that we learned early on, as Andrew mentioned, was the importance of building a team. So for us as underfunded, if you will, entrepreneurs, we learned early on was that in the interest of preserving cash, we formed a team of outsourced professionals. And by that, I mean, we had our accountant, we had our banker, we had our lawyer, and we had our insurance person. And they formed an unofficial board of directors. They formed a group that we could bounce thoughts, concerns, and ideas off of. And yes, it cost us a little money because the accountants didn't come for free, nor did the lawyers come for free. But by and large, we were able to take advantage of that kind of resource availability at very low cost. And that's one thing that I wanted to mention from the top in terms of my experience. One of the things we learned early on was the preservation of cash. That was imposed upon us at a very early age in our entrepreneurial careers, that you had to do all possible to preserve cash. The niche saying at the time, and still probably is bantied around, is cash is king. So that theme persevered throughout our whole manufacturing career. The business that we bought, as I said, was a distressed business, had 7 employees. And by the time we were finished with bolt-on acquisitions, scaling up the company, we had approximately 100, well, a little over 100 employees. And we basically scaled that business up almost 6,000% from the original volume to the volume at the sale. So how did we do that?
Okay. Don't give them the secret yet.
No secret sauce yet?
No secret sauce yet.
Okay. So for us, it was a continual learning experience. We learned that we didn't know it all. We learned that it was hard work. And we learned that if you do it the right way, and again, we were told, and it's so true, and not to scare anybody off, because I think everybody should do this, but we were told that most businesses fail, that you have little or no chance to succeed. So for my partner and I, who were sports fanatics, that's all somebody had to tell us. And our adrenaline competitiveness kicked in, and we were bound and determined not to be one of the high percentage of failures. Not that we didn't have tough times, but it was a journey of one hurdle, one problem, one issue after another. That's the buy-in. When you go into business, you need to be ready to accept that and get help to help you through those times. So we had that business for 41 plus years, and we're able to sell it in 2019, late 2019. And here I am, fully retired. So all that journey, the trials and tribulations, I can tell you on the back end was well worth it. What a learning experience. So I'm happy to pass along any of the details that you want to get into.
Okay.
Andrew, from there, I'm good.
Excellent. Well, definitely, your experience spans the whole gamut of really what small business and business is about, and what doing it successfully is about. Most business owners get stuck along the way.
Mm-hmm.
You can only go as far as your business is prepared to take it, or as far as you're prepared to take your business. And part of preparation is knowledge and developing your team and a lot of other things which you've done successfully. So we're gonna talk about that and sort of how you did that and some of the key things to it. But before we do that, we do the show through the Small Business Pro University. So I just want to take a minute to share a quick video about what the show is, what the university is all about, and then we'll come back talking small business with Mel Solomon. Many small businesses experience low or no revenue growth, and the owners are not making enough money. I founded Small Business Pro University to help you break that cycle by empowering you with greater knowledge and enhanced skills to lead your organization more effectively. Over the past 15 years, I've collaborated with organizations like the Small Business Development Center, Rising Tide Capital, Empower the Village, NJMEP, Rutgers University, and SCORE to work one-on-one with over 1,000 business owners and teach tens of thousands of people about business. My experience includes serving as a naval officer, managing businesses, graduating from MIT, earning an MBA from NYU, and achieving the CFA designation, which has prepared me to accomplish my mission of helping 1 million and 8 business owners to sell more, maximize profit, and finance growth by 2028. My vision is to create the ultimate business ecosystem for entrepreneurs. Small Business Pro University empowers entrepreneurs like you to run their businesses more professionally and create sustainable enterprises. We employ my proven proprietary Masterpreneur playbook framework to guide your journey along the Masterpreneur path and facilitate your Masterpreneur evolution to work on your business and scale faster and easier. Small Business Pro University provides access to valuable resources, partnerships, and relationships that will help you to sell more, maximize profit, and finance growth. Our Masterpreneur initiatives include the Small Business Pro Network, 100 plus expert-led multimedia courses, intensive training workshops, Spanish language training, Leadership Live at 8:05, Livestream and podcast, in-person Power Breakfast events, and advisory coaching, consulting, and training services. Okay, welcome back to Leadership Live. I'm here with Mel Solomon, and we're talking about business being a team sport. So, Mel, you talked about, building your team in the beginning was really important, and a little bit about who your team was, and that, your team was, I guess nowadays they may call it fractional, or, outsource or freelancers, but really early on it can be tough to bring on employees, but you still need the knowledge and expertise. So definitely, have some questions here. Want to make sure we get them. But one of the things that we talked about was leading a small team and some of the challenges. So Nick wants to know a little bit about what's the biggest challenge in leading a small team.
Well, I think, and I'll put it in a phraseology. I think that's really plain and simple. It's getting everybody to show up. I'm a sports guy, so we ran and so is my partner. So we use a lot of sports analogies in our philosophy in terms of how we're going to run our business. And one of the earliest challenges that we had was getting everybody to show up at the field on time and prepared to work. And then not only showing up and being prepared to work, but getting them to march in the same direction. We're dealing with people. We want to make sure that their input is accepted and appreciated, but we have a vision, we have a mission, and the overarching effect of that is that we've got to be able to get everybody to have buy-in. So I'd say early on, that was the biggest challenge, because the business that we bought and the employees that we brought back from the distressed business, they had their own way of doing things. My challenge in particular was, why are we doing this way? And why can't we do it some other way, some other different way? And I had ideas, and I had to be careful not to force feed, but to get buy-in. I'd say, Nick, that's probably one of the biggest challenges throughout the whole career.
Okay. Excellent. And, one thing, you have to evolve, and your business has to evolve, and your team has to evolve. And you talked a little bit about, as you had employees, one of the challenges was really figuring out what to share with them. And once you figure that out, that seemed to be, have a great impact, positive impact on your organization. So can you talk a little bit about your experience with that, and what made you decide to share the information?
So being an entrepreneur, at least from my standpoint, was you're naturally want to have your thumb on everything. You want to have everything close to the vest. You don't necessarily share all the details of everything, and financials in particular, with everybody. You're selective early on. We came to the realization as we started to scale up the business and bring on more people, in the best interest of communication. Excuse me. It was important that we share vital information. Yes, we shared it with our accountant, obviously. Yes, we shared it with the bank that demanded that they have that information. I'm talking about financials. And after a period of time, with enough feedback from everybody from the floor to the salespeople, as we demanded more and more accountability, we began to realize that you can't have success with that accountability unless people have knowledge. So we moved to what we called an open management philosophy. We shared our financial statements with what we called then our operations team. That was everything from HR to operations, and we did it every month, so that we could actually use that as an internal tool to gauge performance past month and moving forward. And it worked out really well. People grew to know that, and I know this sounds silly, but that every dollar that was going out of the back the front door, well, I should say the shipping floor, wasn't going into the partners' pockets. That was a popular misconception. Nobody really paid attention to the expense lines in between. Once those became obvious and available to people, that was kind of an aha moment. People started to grasp the financial mechanisms of the business, and we were able to point to various areas and tweak this and tweak that using the financial statements as an instrument of leadership.
Okay. Excellent. Excellent. So,
By the way, excuse me, Andrew, that I just wanted to add that was psychologically a very difficult bridge to cross. Once you kind of expose those, there's no going back. You can't say, I'm just going to do this for a month or 2 or 6 months. That's it. That's your operating criteria moving forward. So you had to get, we had to get comfortable with that, and we were fine with them moving forward.
Definitely. That's similar to one of the things that I do with most business owners that I work with, is really developing the key performance indicators and, using that as a way to lead and manage your team more effectively. But your team has to have information to, know what to do, know whether what they're doing is working or not, and for you to hold them accountable to. So that's definitely a great shift in your business, and a lot of people have the same hang up, like this. Do I really want my people to know what we're doing? But I did that for a client recently, and people didn't realize that of every $100 in sales, $5 was becoming profit. So it woke them up, because then, like you said, you got to manage your expenses. And then, it gives them an idea of why and how important it is. So that's huge. So now, one of the challenges, similar to that for many people, is delegating. So talk a little bit about, your tips, your thoughts on how to delegate more effectively.
Really an excellent point. Entrepreneurs are typically, at least the ones that I was associated with over that span of time, are typically, I want my finger on everything. I want to make all the decisions, and it's my way and only my way. We had to learn early on that there's more to it than that. We had to accept that in different facets of our business, these people are on the front line. They're experiencing things on a minute by minute basis that's really good input. You can't turn your back on that kind of feedback. So again, that's another looking in the mirror kind of experience. You've got to say to yourself, I have to let go. Now, does that mean they're running the company? No. As the top leadership, we're still running the company, but it's a collective effort. We did that in many different ways. And the top things that come to my mind are sales and manufacturing. They were ever changing. It was an evolutionary process from the day we bought the business till the day I sold the business. If you didn't continue to evolve, you basically died. It's just like a plant growing. If it wasn't watered properly and fed properly, there's no way it's going to make it. It's a great analogy, and it's so true. But in order to get that kind of food for the beast that we were creating, we needed to have universal input and impact. And we did that in a lot of ways. We went into the lean manufacturing and continuous improvement mode, where we took employees off the floor in different departments, a department at a time, and it was easy for us to demand process improvement, but it was very difficult to get buy-in. But by doing the lean manufacturing routine and continuous improvement, it was their idea. We had them basically for 4 days, 2 manufacturing days. We took them and we had roundtable discussions to develop ideas. And we had 2 days to implement them, Saturday and Sunday. And by Monday, that department was changed. And we did that 3, 4, 5 times a year, depending on how we were scaling up the business. And it worked because, quite simply, it wasn't my idea. It's your idea. So I have your buy-in. Let's make it work. And it made a world of difference, as opposed to us, the top leadership, continuing to force feed. This is what we want. This is how it has to be done, without communicating why or accepting feedback that, hey, Mel, that's not going to work, at least the way you're proposing it. So it again, as I mentioned, you need to look at yourself and say, this is a team. And part of that team is from the ground floor up, the people who are pushing the buttons on the floor, the people who are loading the trucks. It doesn't matter what the responsibility is. The HR people, it's all encompassing. You have to be able to delegate and let loose. Very difficult. I'm not going to short circuit or shortchange that. It's a very difficult thing to do, but in the end, it's what you have to do to keep the business running.
Great. No, definitely.
It's communication and involvement. Yeah.
Communicate. Definitely. So, we talked a little bit earlier. I showed you the Masterpreneur journey that I put together to sort of just outline what entrepreneur's journey should look like from startup to scaling. I'm going to put it up on the screen with us here real quick. And it's really about 5 steps to go from startup to scaling. Initially you're working on the concept of your business. You're developing your product, service, and trying to figure out what the right market is. You talked about distribution being so important. Once you get started, you're working in your business. And when you're working in your business, you've got to sell and deliver the products and services as well. So it's a challenging time because you feel like you're on a treadmill. So that's why most people never end up working on their business, because they're stuck working in their business and can't find a way or time to work on it, or don't know how to work on it, or don't know they need to work on it. And then you're working on your business to optimize your business, working on the future of your business, and scaling your business. And at each of these steps, there's different challenges. There's different goals you need to have. There's different skill sets that are key. And you've sort of walked through each of these. One of the key things as part of the evolution is, you have to totally change your focus in the way you lead. And one of the big challenges where people get stuck, and I'm sure you've kind of gotten stuck with this a little bit or had to overcome it, is dealing with being a leader and friendship on the team. Because in a small business, you get to know each other, but as things grow, you can't maintain the same type of relationship with everybody in the company. So talk a little bit about, how that played in through the growth of your business.
Though that is an excellent point, and a very difficult point, problem to overcome. Look, the easy analogy that we all use continuously in facing the everyday challenges was that we were in the foxhole together. There was continual enemy fire overhead, And so I got your back, you got my back kind of thing. And so we're in that foxhole, who's the leader? How does the friendship play in? How's the loyalty? So rolling that all into a forward momentum is really difficult. It's a balancing act for sure. There's always an overtone who the leaders are. I chose to do that in not in a browbeating, continual reminder kind of way. I chose to do that by example. They knew by my intermingling, by my continual questioning, by my suggestions and want for creativity. I was the change maker. I saw our business as something that needed to continually change, almost on a daily basis. In fact, one of my favorite sayings was when a visitor came in, I'd say, well, come back in 6 months. It's not going to look the same way. If you're touring our plant, it'll be different in the next visit you make, whether they were a customer or a vendor or a support outside support person. So I chose to have a leadership persona of involvement as opposed to just speaking to speak. I wanted them to see that I was daily involved. It wasn't beyond me to run a machine, to load a truck, to do whatever was necessary. I just wanted them to know that this is what leaders do. Sometimes they do have to clean the toilets, excuse the expression. So how does that play with the friendship on the team? I tried to keep a little bit of a distance. I tried to build the loyalty. I worked hard on that. Yes, I went to our employees' weddings or christenings or what have you, but I tried not to do the Friday night, let's go have a beer kind of thing. We had Christmas parties. We had barbecues in the summertime. We did have company picnics, but we left it more in a general way as opposed to me being your best friend. And that was always very difficult because people being people, it's easier to make friends with certain kinds of people than it is other kinds. So you had to be very careful in the eyes of the individual employee that they didn't look at your relationship with other employees like they're one of the boys and I'm not. I very specifically balanced my interaction so that everybody knew they were getting the same attention. Once certain people rose into senior leadership, our relationships were a lot closer. They bordered on a little more friendship because when your very senior leadership is called upon to, they have to do whatever they have to do. And this could be 24-hour days. This could be eight days a week. So I needed to have their family relationships understand that when the time comes, we're not going to abuse it, but when the time comes, we need to be together to do this, whatever this means. We moved our company 4 or 5 times to different locations as we scaled up. Those were weekends worth of work because we couldn't lose any production. I had to have buy-in. So there was a degree of friendship, but it can't be that they're your best friends and you're socializing all the time. It had to be limited to, we're good guys. We're not going to abuse the relationships that everybody has, and everybody is treated the same. So, but having said all that, it was a very, very difficult balance because it's perception. How does this person perceive your relationship versus this person? So it continued to be to the last day a very daunting task balance that. It's not easy.
Okay. Yeah, no, definitely. That's not something easy to do. And one thing that makes it even more challenging is when you bring someone from the outside in to work on your leadership team or as a manager. Can you talk a little bit about those types of experiences and some of the challenges and some of the ways that you dealt with them?
Well, there were a couple of areas that we were fortunate that we were able to internally promote people, primarily in the factory itself. We had a pretty structured program where people could be moved into different stages of leadership. I'll use one example in particular. I had one employee that was working on the shipping floor. And over the years, he progressed through different positions from a foreman to a supervisor to a department head. He became the vice president of operations and eventually he was the chief operating officer for the plant. You had it was difficult to let me just phrase it like we tried the most to promote from within, but there were certain areas that you just had to go outside. We needed to build an engineering staff. We had no availability. We brought in engineers and a head of engineering. It was just a new department. We matured to where we needed to have a CFO, a controller, and a CFO. We just went ahead and did that. And yes, we talked through people so that they accepted that this was necessary and that there was a role that these people were going to play. Our office senior staff, HR, finance, sales, spent time in the shop. They needed to interact with the people in the shop, and their contemporaries in the shop. And so those people had to understand in the shop that they weren't there to hurt them. They were there to work with them. Not so easy sometimes, depending on personalities, but you just sometimes have to do that. Everyone can't be promoted from within. Where we could do it, we did it. But I kind of played a secondary role in those relationships to begin with. I inserted myself. We brought people in and there needed to be some strong interaction. We brought people in and hired from the outside in leadership roles. I inserted myself to kind of smooth that thing over, or that stage over. And then I backed out and let it happen. I let them build their relationships. But we made sure that as we grew, that the people that were there understood the need to bring in additional people. That's just, that's just the way it is. So I'm not saying it was easy, but you just have to focus on making it as easy as possible.
Okay, excellent. So yeah, no, definitely, it can be really difficult. You had, one of the most difficult things that business owners run into is finding a second in command and being able to get someone internal to be able to grow into that position. It was amazing because I've worked with businesses and probably half the time they try and hire a second in command, it doesn't work. Mm-hmm. So it's a really delicate relationship, and especially if someone's coming from the outside, there's a lot of dynamics that make that difficult from both above them and below them.
Yep.
But that's critical for any business that's going to scale. You're going to have to find that because, if you scale, you can't continue to do all the things that you were doing before, you're not going to be able to scale. So, definitely been covering some great stuff. Want to take a break real quick. I've actually through our university and through our capabilities, we're able to do some new things this year in terms of financial management for businesses, because I think that's where most businesses have the biggest challenge. So here's a quick video about what we're doing, and then we'll come back talking more with Mel about building a team and a team sport.
Every great business owner needs an expert financial management team. As your business grows, you're going to need more comprehensive financial expertise to help you with these activities. Financing growth, managing cash flow, maximizing profitability, strategic planning and budgeting, accurate, timely information for decision-making, determining the appropriate staffing and inventory levels, and preparation for and analysis of potential opportunities. At this stage, you may not have the budget to hire multiple financial professionals from different firms. However, we can provide an outsourced team with over 100 years of experience in CFO, controller, accounting, tax, and bookkeeping to provide the expertise you need when needed. We will help you with your financial needs from A to Z. Whether you need bookkeeping, we will organize and enter your financial information. Accounting, we will provide accurate, timely financial reporting with analysis of key information and trends. Taxes, we will help you with tax preparation, reporting, and submission. Or CFO services, business strategy, financial projections, KPIs, or financing. We've got you covered from A to Z. Use the link below to schedule a complimentary discovery session. You have nothing to lose. Use the link below to explore how we can help.
All right, welcome back to Leadership Live. I'm here with Mel Solomon, talking small business and really talking about how business is a team sport and really how you lead your team most effectively. Definitely appreciate everybody's comments and questions. Definitely helping to make it a lively conversation. So one of the questions that we have here is about what strategies have worked best for building trust among team members, and especially between departments, because trust is so important in a successful business.
Well, that is a really excellent question. So let's go to one particular illustration of that. You always have a natural conflict between sales and manufacturing. Sales is not selling enough, or manufacturing is not putting out enough, or sales isn't selling it at a high enough profit margin. They're giving the product, trying to give the product away, and sales is saying, why can't we manage this? Why can't we manufacture this more economically so I'm more competitive? So you have that. That's one particular area where that trust factor is really stressed to the max. So I'll go back to, and there's others, but that's just one illustration. So what we did, we went to a two-pronged kind of approach to, as best we could, bridge that trust. The two-pronged approach was, we developed this operations group that we had. Our operations group consisted of sales, manufacturing, HR, finance, and my partner and I. And we met every week to discuss issues from the past week and looking forward. And each person had to come with an agenda as to what their piece of this meeting was. And that really worked out well. We had, and it was only an hour, so you had to come prepared. And there were some stressful meetings. I wouldn't say everyone was, but most of them were. It was confrontational, but it was managed confrontation. There was no going behind each other's backs. We tried to, that was my role, to try to get everybody to bring it to the table. And eventually, within months, we got the buy-in because we were working with the financial statements, and it was obvious that here was an issue and here was an issue, and we had to get this resolved. Second part of that was that once a month, we had what we called a blue sky meeting, and we kept an agenda, and our controller and then our CFO managed that meeting. And this was a meeting where people just came in with the wildest of ideas. We threw it against the wall. Everything was written down, and we went through ideas so that it was a co-shared experience. And through those two tools, we built a good base for trust. Was it absolutely perfect? No, it wasn't. And I'm not here to tell you that it was 100%, but it was better than having an atmosphere where I don't know what you're doing, you don't know what I'm doing, and you don't have any appreciation for what I do or what you do. We were able to commingle all of that and get a better amalgamation of an approach to the task of how are we going to grow, how are we going to serve the customer, and number one, how are we going to make money? And can we make money? Great to have all these products. Wonderful to have all these men working for all these people working for us. Are we making any money? And so those were the tools that we used to bring our management team together to build trust.
Excellent. So, definitely, I've heard a lot tonight from you, as well as when we talked before about balance. And, as things move, you still got to keep things in balance. What are the key things that you are consistently using as gauges of that you need to keep in balance, that you look at or are thinking about on a daily or weekly business or weekly basis when you're in the business?
Andrew, that almost changes by the minute.
Okay.
The challenges and issues, first of all, there are things that I never would have thought would have come up. There was no way to prepare for a good many of those issues with customers, with vendors, with all of those big blocks. You have your customers here, you have your vendors here, and then you have your workforce, your team. So amongst those three divisional aspects, the challenges were absolutely incredible. There was no way to develop a playbook that would work for you on an hour by hour, minute by minute. So you had to mentally be prepared to deal with things. You couldn't, and I didn't stay in my office. During the hours that we were in operation, I moved. I was, whether it was in the office to other offices, whether it was out in the plant, whether I was out meeting with vendors and customers, I just couldn't stay in the office, sheltered from everything. My door was always open. I never shut my door, but I never sat down. I had a standing work desk, and people knew when they came in, this was not an area to get comfortable. So when we had interactions, they had to be quick because we weren't standing around for an hour. Let's not sit down and have tea. Okay. So how did that relate to the question at hand? I think the best way I can answer that is I just took them one at a time and delegated. I had to be big enough to say, okay, that's an issue, that's a challenge. Mr. Sales Guy, take care of this, and this is where we need to be. That's where the delegation part came in. Manufacturing, these are manufacturing issues. If it's a big issue, then we got to pull together and resolve this. So there were tiers of obstacles. There were tiers of issues. Tiers meaning levels. And so depending on what the issues of the hour or the minute were, you had to draw in the people that were involved and just oversee and make sure it got done. You're trying to do this all by yourself, forget it. And where my main focus was to how to continually to grow the business. So I couldn't get bogged down in the fact that this person didn't show up for work 3 days last week. Take care of it. We had policies. We were unionized, so we had to go by certain rules, but they were not intrusive. They were not interfering. If this was issues that were in violation of basic workings rules, and I just single out the plant, it was easy. They aligned with us. They took care of those employees. So back to the original question, let's go to the team again. The team has to help you work through all of those things. It'll blow your head off within an hour. And I don't think our business, I had lots of friends who were in the same boat and we were paddling up the stream. Sometimes we felt like we didn't have a paddle. So in our interaction and discussions, they have the same issues. And I didn't hesitate. If the issue was of such magnitude, I called other people on the phone that I knew that shared in this manufacturing world that we lived in and said, hey, can you believe, have you ever seen this before? And so, and we talked. I knew that I wasn't smart enough, strong enough, or just capable of handling everything on my own. It just wasn't going to happen. So let's go back to the team.
Okay, excellent. And you talked a little bit about your leadership, and it actually matches up with the military leadership style. There's two tenets to leadership in the military that I've learned. Is one, you got to manage while walking around. You can't just be in your office hanging out, and people need to know that you can show up at any time, and that helps make sure your presence is felt. And
I might add a third tenet to that.
Okay.
Excuse me for interrupting, Andrew. In my early and middle life as an entrepreneur, I made sure that I worked every piece of equipment, that I did all the sales. I was the sales guy to begin with. I wanted people to know that I've been through that. I did this. Don't come to me with a line of baloney and think that, and they knew that I knew. And my presence out there, they would look, when I was looking around, I wasn't looking around at you to make sure, maybe out of the corner of my eye, but I wasn't out there to make sure you were doing your job. I was looking around to see how we could do this better. And they knew that after a while. In fact, one funny story. So because our plant was so big and we had a number of staff people in the plant, they were all mic'd up. They were walkie-talkies. So when Mel was out in the plant and he put his hands behind his back and he was looking around and looking up, you could hear across the whole system, Mel's out in the plant. Something's going to happen. Changes in the wind. And they were right. I was looking. So I'm just reinforcing that walking around, you'll lose. You'll lose if you're going to sit in your office. And so
Definitely that. And then the second is trust but verify. You know, you trust people, you got to delegate, but that doesn't mean you just let them do anything. And you know, and as they know that what you're checking on them, you know, that encourages them to be more diligent. So,
And I'll add one thing to that:
okay,
trust, verify, and reward. So
true.
all of those people that we talked about trusting and verifying that they were doing it, I needed to know they were all on an incentive performance above and beyond their salary. They shared in the profits, and I had a spreadsheet, and they knew exactly what percentages they were going to get. But I also wanted to make sure that if I was trusting you and I knew you were doing your job, I wanted them to know that you were going to get rewarded. So I think that was a key. That was a key element that maybe we didn't mention earlier. They all had buy-in to the company overall performance.
Definitely. And that's part of the culture. You know, you got to create a culture. You got to encourage and reward the culture that you want. You know, or else it's not going to happen. And that's, you know, the key, one of the most important jobs as the leader. So definitely that. You know, time disappears on us real quick because we're bumping up against 9 o'clock. You know, but we're not on the network, so nobody's going to cut us off exactly at 9 o'clock. So we'll probably run a couple minutes over. But you know, this is the question of all questions. If you can answer this one, then you know.
Do I get a reward?
Hey, you get a huge reward. So here's the question. How can business owners apply this on day one? So how would you apply this on day one if you were starting over?
The whole collective of knowledge that we just talked about. I think I would. First of all, it's overwhelming. This is knowledge that's learned along the way, and I wish somebody had shared this with me. If I were able to go into business today, I would look, and this is by no means a plug for you, Andrew. I would look for someone to sit beside me and help me through day one. Someone who's already been through numbers of day ones and be there for me. We did not have that, and it was just it was almost suffocating at times. So for me, I would want to, as I started to open the door the first day, make sure that I had someone to talk with that was a seasoned person. And I know there are a lot of organizations out there, but it's really incumbent to know that I don't know anything. I don't know everything. And there are people out there that have done this before. This is not rocket science. This is not reinventing the wheel. The widgets are different, but the process is really tried and tested over the years. So day one, there's no way to have all of this knowledge. The best thing I could do would be to find someone that has most of what I think I might need and ask them to sit with me for a little bit, get me through the first month, get into my head and tell me, directionally how I have to act in this, that, and that. And it's psychologically, it's philosophically, it's implementation, and the key word, excuse me, is communication. It's all of those. And if you have the ability to take that in and understand that this is what's necessary, help me get through that. I would look for help. Yeah.
Okay. Great.
And except that I didn't know it. Oh.
Okay. And yeah, I mean, communication is so important. So cool. So before we close out, what we always like to do is have each guest share the top 3 things that you think people should take away from our conversation this evening. I always like to think of things in 3 because one, a lot of times people can't remember more than 3 things. So,
at my age, I can't remember 3 of them.
So, but 3 things that they can take tomorrow, just think about, try, work on implementing. I'll give you a minute to think about them and, play a short video about our upcoming conference. Once a year, we have a conference for entrepreneurs and business owners. It's going to be July 25th this year. And here's a little bit about our events. We're here at the Small Business Power Breakfast and Conference. Excited to say that we had a great day.
This event was a wow. Every panel, every speaker has had so much amazing content and good information to share.
This is a good day to put aside to come out and do some learning, but also make some great connections. The ones that I made were impactful.
Hi, I'm Andrew Frazier, Masterpreneur and founder of the Small Business Pro University. For more than 10 years, our events have directly resulted in tens of millions of dollars in both revenue and financing for attendees. Join me at the Small Business Pro Power Conference on July 25th at NJ Pack's Nico Kitchen and Bar in Newark, New Jersey to learn best practices, enjoy great networking, and gain useful knowledge. We will supercharge your day. I look forward to seeing you at the Small Business Pro Power Conference on July 25th in NJ Pack at Nico Kitchen and Bar in Newark, New Jersey. To learn more and register, visit www.sbprou.com/conference.
Good evening and welcome back. This is Leadership Live at 8:05. Been chatting with Mel Solomon about really how building a business is a team sport. And Mel's going to share with us the 3 key things that we should take away from the conversation that we can implement starting tomorrow.
Well, he did come up with 3 things, surprisingly. The first one, obviously, is the title of tonight's show, the team. It's important to have that team ready and willing to go from the get-go. That team, the composition of that team changes as the company changes. Does it grow from, it could grow from totally external to partially external and internal, eventually internal with very little external, but team is the key. There's no one that I know in my lifetime in business that was able to do it alone. So team is the key. So that's number 1. Number 2 is strategy. Have a good strategy to get your product out there. As a manufacturer, I could make anything. It didn't matter what it was. The question was, and this had to do with growing the company, new product implementation, evolution of the company. The strategy has to be, where are the markets and how do I penetrate those markets with speed? We can't wait years. How efficiently can I get into those markets and then scale up each one of those markets? So strategy regarding product distribution and profitability. That's point number 2. And point number 3, which I think is maybe the key point, is put change in the center of your brain, if you will. Business is built on change. Daily, monthly, yearly, it needs to change all the time. I called it evolution, evolving. Change is key. Be the person that's the pusher for change. Don't let the company be stale. That saying that if it ain't fixed, if it ain't broken, don't fix it, doesn't work. It doesn't work in business. So be the agent of change from day one, and accept that responsibility. I'll put it in the words that my partner and I always used. Change is a sports, we used a sports acronym for change. We stepped to the plate, we swung at the ball. If we hit 2 out of 5, we were in the Hall of Fame. If we missed 3 out of 5, we still made the Hall of Fame. So risk comes with change, but by all means, put that in caps, boldface, and underline it. Change is a big takeaway.
Excellent. Excellent. No, definitely really powerful stuff. I mean, definitely your team, you talked about sort of how your team evolved, how you managed your team, how you led your team, and how you made your team do their jobs so that you could do your job, because many times people don't hold their teams accountable. So definitely that, having a strategy. So many businesses don't even have a plan, let alone a strategy where you have a plan that's informed by analysis and optimized. So, strategy is key. Of course, you got to implement it too, but if you don't have it, then, whatever you're going to implement isn't likely to get the best results. And finally, change. And as a business owner, you have to drive the change. It's not going to happen on its own. So, no, I mean, this is really powerful. This has been a great conversation this evening, Mel. Thanks for hanging out. Anything you want to share? Anything you want to share before we close out?
Oh, it was my pleasure. Andrew, first of all, it's good to reconnect after all these years. It's good to see that there is a platform like this that's out there for people like us who need this kind of information exchange. As I said, I feel like I was a Stone Age guy. We didn't have this. Learning it by getting knocked over on your heels is definitely not a way I would choose today. And if this type of exchange is available, I know I'm preaching here, but by all means, take advantage of it. So that's my lesson for today.
Okay, well, thank you so much. If you can hang on, I'm going to close things out, but hang on for.
I will.
Okay.
I will.
Cool. So once again, had a great show. I appreciate everybody's comments. Definitely Mel shared some really valuable information, and looking forward to continuing. Excited that we're coming up on 5 years. So this fall we're going to have our 5-year anniversary. So we're going to do something big, and we're working on it now. So can't wait to share it as we get closer to the time. So as always, each week we have great guests, and next week what our show is going to be about is we're really going to be talking about change and how to turn uncertainty into opportunity. So, we talked about the need for change. Now we're going to talk about, okay, well, what do you do with it, and how do you manage it? So, really excited about that as well. So hopefully you can join us again. And at the end of the day, always remember that the more that you know, the more successfully your business is going to grow.
Thank you for listening to Leadership Live at 8:05, Talking Small Business. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and to the podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Leadership Live is one of the many valuable resources provided through the Small Business Pro University, empowering business owners to learn, profit, and grow. Find out more at sbpro.u.com.